Hello fellow 3D printing peeps, I'm sitting next to an Ender 3 S1 3D printer, and today we are going to talk about the Creality High Flow High Heat Upgrade Kit, or as they specifically call it on their web store, the High Flow Kit for SonicPad. The reason they say that is because this kit is intended to help your printer keep up with the higher speeds that you guys are pushing when printing with the SonicPad. However, even without a SonicPad or clipper, a high heat, high flow kit like this can help you find better success printing at higher speeds and higher temperatures. Before we get started, we are going to discuss this kit just a little bit. Those of you who find it boring can fast forward straight to the nuts and bolts, literally. The first interesting thing to note about this kit is when you look at it on the Creality shop, it includes a 5015 fan upgrade. Before we get started talking about the installation process, let's have a look at the hot end itself. This is the new hot end upgrade. This is the original spider hot end upgrade. This is the nozzle for the hot end upgrade. This is the original spider nozzle upgrade. Does it look familiar? The S1 high flow upgrade is the heat block, heat break, and nozzle of the original spider hot end, which is unfortunate because it uses this ridiculous nozzle that nobody uses for anything ever, rather than a standard V6 or MK8 nozzle. Can you spot the difference? No? That's because there are none. They simply took the heat block, heat break, and nozzle off the spider, put it in a box, and called it an upgrade. Why do I care? I really don't, outside of the fact that I don't wish to use this nozzle. However, we are going to go ahead and do it anyway. Looking at the positive parts of this upgrade, the nozzle's already installed, the heat tube's already installed, and the thermistor's already installed. Not only are they already installed, but they already have attachments that fit the Sprite extruder, so you don't have to do any wiring whatsoever, making this a very quick and easy upgrade. You will also notice the heat break is already installed as well. So why do we want this thing? This is an all metal heat break, and this is a high flow nozzle. Creality states that this heat break has a 30% larger hot melt section to help keep up with higher speed printing. Of course, being an all metal heat break also allows you to print at higher temperatures. Now let's talk about the most confusing part of this upgrade, and that is the 5015 fan. Creality does include this with the kit, and it does say Creality right here on the sticker. However, Creality does not provide a mount to attach this fan to the Sprite hot end. If you don't believe me, I have invested considerable time over a several week period attempting to reach out to Creality via Facebook, email, and their web chat in order to obtain an official mounting method, an STL of some kind to print for this fan, and I assure you they do not have one. If you look at the paperwork that comes with this upgrade, you will notice it shows this, and it has a link at the top. This link requires a username and password. I was denied the username and password for this link, as I was told it is only given to resellers. I have also learned that this is not the file that you get if you get access to this link. You get a file that doesn't even work. To make things better, this file right here appears to be somebody else's design on printables. So in search of a mount that works, I fished through the community offerings. I landed on one by user ZUFF, ZUFF, and this is his V3 Airduct mount for the 5015 fan on the Sprite extruder. This is printed on black PETG, and I will walk you through my process of printing it right now. Here we are in Cura. I'm using a CR10 version 2. These are the 4 parts you'll be using. You will see I have them orientated so that the flat parts are down. This will negate the need for supports. Speaking of supports, we will not be using supports. I printed this in PETG using the Cura generic PETG profile. When I printed this bed, I had a failure of the blower right here. So what I suggest is you remove this blower and you print these three parts on their own and the blower separately. I did them at a 0.16, 25% infill. I did a reasonably safe speed at 45 millimeter. And I used a skirt so that I have the ability to preview my first layer before it gets going. For the blower, I printed it by itself, face up, bottom down, and I did go ahead and use a brim just to ensure that it stays put. This simple brim will help the model stay put and prevent the model from separating from the bed. And here is the blower we just talked about in black PETG with the brim. You're simply going to grab this brim and peel it off. Typically a brim will pop right off, but if you find that it's holding on for dear life, just grab your beloved snippers and give it a little motivation. Now, some of you get really bent out of shape over stringing and little whisks inside of there. I know we want to print without, but let's say you get stringing like this. You don't need to spend the rest of your life reprinting this model over and over again. I am going to fire up one of my favorite tools, my heat gun. And we're going to get this sucker really hot. Just quick, brief, gentle passes. Hold up, I'm sorry, what stringing? We are going to use this kit to install this kit. There are 3 sizes needed to install this mount and air duct, and they are M3 5mm, M3 16mm, M3 20mm. Grab yourself the Allen key or the tool of your choice. I'm going to use a T10 and whatever size this little thing is for my Sprite extruder. Speaking of Sprite extruder, let's go ahead and take our Sprite extruder off. The first thing I need you to do is push these 2 clips apart and remove this cable. Getting the Sprite hot end off is nothing to be afraid of. Simply turn your eyes to the side of the Sprite hot end and spot these 4 screws right here. They make a Z formation, 1, 2, 3, 4. You will notice they are attached to this metal plate, so this one right here stays where it is. Pop a T10 on those screws and get them off. Now that those 4 screws are off, pinch the extruder in front of that bracket and simply lift it up and away. Here is your Sprite extruder, no need to be afraid of it. We are going to go ahead and take this pathetic little fan off. Use the provided Allen key or a tool of your choice that fits and remove the screws on the side of the fan. Here is the front of the hot end. Here is the side. We removed these 2 screws right here. Now we are going to turn it this way, and because Creality hates us, you will see that the remaining screw is blocked by the CR Touch. Simply remove the CR Touch by removing the 2 screws on each side of the top of the CR Touch. You will get to those screws by looking underneath. Once you back out those 2 screws, the CR Touch will simply move aside. And that will expose the remaining screw right there. Just in case you're unsure, here's the front, here's the fan, and here's the screw. Back that screw out, and voila, your fan is off. As I'm sure you've noticed, the fan is not supposed to do like this, so you need to go ahead and look toward the back of the circuit board of your CR Touch and remove this little wire connection that says FN on it. Just pinch it gently and pop it off. Then you can feed this out. And congratulations, you've removed your stock S1 fan. You can now put the CR Touch back on. You might notice I am talking to you from the future because this is important. Your CR Touch probe will likely be too high, causing the nozzle to hit the bed before the probe. So we need to go ahead and install spacers. You can print a spacer like this to the exact height you'd like, or you can use the spacers that came with the high flow kit. They look like this. I prefer spacers like this because you can use your slicer to set the thickness exactly how you want, such as 1mm or 1.25mm. I'll show you how to do this in Cura. For now, we'll just use the one that came with the kit. Installing them is very simple. I took the wire off so it's easier for you to see. I'm going to use what I believe is an M38 from Home Depot. Place it on your tool. Place the CR Touch over the screw. Place the spacer over the screw and screw the whole contraption into your printer. I'll just stick the spacer between the two and I will slide the screw through. There you have it. This will lower the probe so that the probe touches the bed before the nozzle. Now I'm going to install it with a 3D printed spacer. You can use the screws that came on your CR Touch, or you can also use an M38. When you print this, you can print it in the exact millimeters you believe you need, or you can simply make a few different sizes. I don't remember the exact size of these two spacers, but together they equal 2mm. Okay, so here I am in Ultimaker Cura. This is the CR Touch spacer. You can apply these principles to your favorite slicer, such as Prusa or Lychee or Super Slicer. We are looking at the Z height right here, represented by the blue line. If you look on the left side of the screen, we're going to click here under Scale. You can also press the shortcut S on your keyboard. You will now see that the scale is in millimeters and the Z height is 2. So the thickness of this spacer is 2mm. You can go ahead and print this in 2mm, or say you need 1.5mm. You can change it to 1.5. However, we are not going to use uniform scaling. If we do that, you will see that it changed everything proportionately to make it 1.5mm. Let's undo that. You will want to uncheck uniform scaling and change only the Z height to 1.5mm. Now you'll see all the other proportions stayed the same and the Z height's been changed to 1.5mm. Don't forget to go to your move and replace the model on the bed. It will lift up off the bed if you change the size. Before you slice and print it, check to make sure the bottom is blue. Now, if you know the exact thickness you need, you can go ahead and set that and print it. If you are unsure, go ahead and multiply this model by clicking Multiply Selected or pressing Ctrl M. You'll now see I have 3 of these models. You can take this one, uncheck uniform scaling and set it to 1mm. You can check this one and set it to 1.75mm. You can check this one and set it to 2mm. If you'd like, you can multiply this one again and leave it at 1mm. Now that you have various sized spacers, you can mix and match to get the correct thickness for your setup. The official Creality metal spacers that come with this kit are about 3.3mm, so I would go ahead and print one of these spacers at 3.3mm. Because we made changes to the scale of these models, we need to look underneath where we can see that they are no longer making contact with the bed. Holding the Shift key, you can click on each of these models and see that they turn blue. Then go to Move and change the Z height from 0.5, or whatever it's showing as, to 0. Now you will see all three models have adjusted to 0 and they are flush with the bed. While these spacers won't be supporting a whole lot of weight, I would go ahead and use a reasonable infill percentage of roughly 20 or even 25. The amount of material required to print these little things is so minute, it hardly matters. So might as well use a number that is high enough to be sure they are strong enough to last the test of time. Another thing worth considering is printing very slowly. These are very small, thin, delicate little spacers. You can go ahead and lower the speed to 40 or even 35. Heck, even 25. Heck, even 20. These things are very small. The slower you print, the better the chance you have a nice clean first layer and everything else prints perfectly without needing a raft or a brim or anything silly to keep these guys from pulling off the bed. Before you print, always click that preview button and have a look at your model. You can see the little bit of infill going on right there, no big deal. And the smaller ones are just straight up layers with no infill at all. Send these off to your printer and they're ready to work as functional spacers for your CR Touch. Now we will install our 3D printed spacer. The Creality spacers are 3.3 millimeters, so I have printed a 3.3 millimeter spacer. Installing this is very straightforward. Simply take your spacer and line up the holes. You'll notice that the spacer has a notch open for installing the CR Touch wiring. Simply take the screw and slide it through the CR Touch and the spacer. Take the CR Touch and the spacer and the screw and screw it into the mount. Don't go too tight because we want to line up the other side of the spacer. Take your next screw, slide it through, and screw it in. Don't snug things up too much, it's just plastic. Pop the CR Touch wire back into place. And you're all set. And now we are going to look toward the front and prepare to install our new hot end and fan. The first thing we'll do is the hot end. We are going to remove the silicone boot. We are going to unplug this white cable right here. Be careful, it might have some hot glue on it. This is not a strong glue. You can use a pick of some kind to just pry it off. However, you might find that it comes out regardless. You're going to do the same to the thermistor, which is right here. These are very small connections. You're just going to very gently work it out. And now we're going to have a closer look at the hot end itself right here. There are two little grub screws that we're going to get off. The little Allen key that came with your kit will work on these. They shouldn't be very tight. You should be able to back these out. Remove them completely. Now you're going to look on the other side and you'll spot one more grub screw hiding right there. Just pop your favorite tool on it and back it off. Remove the whole thing in one piece. Your heat break and heat block should slide right out at this point. Mine was seriously stuck, so I used a wrench and unscrewed the heat block. Then I used heat to loosen up and work out the heat break. I wasn't really concerned about breaking anything because I'm not going to be using either of them anymore. It's now time to install our upgrade kit. Since everything is already installed, the nozzle, the heat block, the thermistor, the heat tube, the silicone boot, the heat break, we will simply slide it into place. And there you go. It's already on. How about that? Position it so the logo faces forward, then remove the silicone boot to expose the holes. Go ahead and grab that grub screw from earlier, turn this sucker around, and lock your new heat break in place. Go until you feel it and then stop. At that point, we're going to switch and do these little guys right here. In your kit, you'll find a little bag with two screws that look like that. We're going to take those two screws and put them in here. and gently firm them up. Once you have these two in place, go back to the grub screw for the heat break and snug it up. Now you can go ahead and connect your heat tube and your thermistor. You will notice there's only one place to stick either one. So go ahead and do that. Okay, there it is. You may find this is really hard. I actually connected mine off camera because Creality couldn't be bothered to give you enough wire to comfortably plug this in and make the nasty 90-degree turn to plug in this connection right here. So what I did is I grabbed it with one of these guys to help me turn it and push it in. I even loosened up this grub and these screws a little bit so I can get a little twist on this to get this part just a little bit closer to the connection. And then I just tighten them and put it back. But there it is, the high flow kit is on. Now we just put on our fancy red silicone boot and we're good to go. Now the fun part, we have to hook up this 5015 fan to this Sprite hot end. To do that, we are going to use this kit right here that you are going to print yourself. This is printed in black PET G. I pressed 2 small nylon lock nuts in each side of this blower. I did this by placing these pieces together, putting the lock nut in the hole, and then driving the screw through the other side to pull the nut down into the slot. I had a little bit of trouble getting the lock nut into the hole, so I placed it above the hole and then put the screw in from behind, and it tightened the bolt down into the slot. Once it was in the slot, I simply removed the screw, and now I'm left with this really nice lock nut waiting for me in the slot. So now it's time to put the mount and blower together. We are going to sandwich this mount between this fan attachment and this blower, and we are going to secure the fan with this piece right here. The mount will have the bracket facing forward, and the fan attachment will go behind that. And the fan support will go here. We are going to put 2 20mm M3 screws through these pieces into 2 small M3 lock nuts. Don't over tighten it, it's only plastic. This is PET G. Next up is the fan support. That is going to fit in this little slot right back here. There's a little peg that fit together on this fan support, and you screw it in using that hole right there and a 5mm M3. It's a little scary because it feels like it's gonna break. The 5mm screw feels like it's a little too long, but it does hold up. And there you have it, the full shroud and mount for your 5015 fan. Putting it on the Sprite couldn't be easier. We're going to mount it to these 2 holes. Simply take the mount and place it over the front of the Sprite. We are going to attach it using 2 5mm M3 screws in these slots. You'll notice they're slots, not holes, so you can adjust the height of the blower. We are going to put it towards the bottom end so that the blower is low enough to reach the tip of the nozzle on the extended new high flow kit. So again, I'm pushing it down so the screws are at the tops of the bracket, and just going to snug them up gently. Again, not too hard because this is plastic and can crack. And there it is. The blower and the mount are attached to the Sprite. You can see that the blower's nozzles are a really good height. They're lined up with the tip of that nozzle so it can cool the layers as they are made. If you find that it's too low or too high, simply loosen the screws on this bracket and slide the whole thing up or down. Now we are going to go ahead and attach the fan. You'll see the big mouth on the fan matches the big mouth on our attachment. Simply take the fan and work it into that slot so that the holes on the triangular mount line up with the holes in the fan. I'm going to take two 20mm screws and put them through the fan into the bracket. Take your time and be gentle. It will tap itself into the bracket and look like that. I will do the same on the remaining connection between the bracket and the fan. Go really slow as it gets snug until you feel comfortable that it's tight enough. You do not want to crack your PETG connection. If you find that you can't line up this second screw with the fan and the mount, simply loosen this top one a touch to give you a little bit more play and then snug them both up. There is the 5015 fan attached to the Creality Sprite extruder with the version 3 fan duct and the high flow hot end upgrade installed. The only thing left to do is attach the fan. You'll find the connection for that right here in the back of the Sprite where the previous fan was plugged in. Simply place the piece over and gently snap it in. I am going to route the wire behind the fan under the CR Touch into the little connection on the board and then underneath the existing fan cover. And we're done. Now that you've got this done, simply drop the Sprite onto your carriage as normal, securing it with the same 4 screws you took it off with. And there she is, our fancy new Creality High Flow kit with the 5015 cooling fan and our fancy new mount and blower. And there it is. We have successfully installed the Creality Ender 3 S1 High Flow upgrade kit along with its 5015 fan upgrade using the version 3 5015 fan mount STL files from ZUFF. You're on the 3D Rundown YouTube channel. I'm Greg Adventure, your instructor on 3drundown.com, and installing this crazy contraption, the Creality Ender 3 S1 High Flow upgrade and the 5015 fan upgrade was today's adventure.